Good morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever and whenever you happen to be listening to this. And thank you for listening to the Sales for the Nigerian Wedding Industry podcast. I'm your host, Abuja based wedding and event photographer, Tavishima Ayede. And the last episode, or rather 2 episodes back, I believe we got into implication and need payoff questions and how we can use them to improve our sales process as wedding and event professionals, to be sure that we're speaking to people who want what it is that we provide and who can afford to engage our services. Now, that was the root of the sales clinic off of which this is based. And the fellow in question was Godwin of G Power. I can't remember the name of the company, but G Power is in the title anyway, and they're in the alternative energy space. And so, just like with the last episode, as in this episode, and in the next 4 or 5 episodes to come, we're going to be looking at specific questions that you can ask to help people realize that there's a value to the service that you bring, and that the problem that you solve is much bigger than they think. And that's the whole point of the implication and need payoff questions that we're going to be looking at. Because, like I've pointed out in previous episodes, if the client if they think that all you do is press the shutter, then there really is no need to pay you top naira to come and be the wedding photographer. And if they think all you do is you stand in the middle of the hall and direct traffic from table 6 to table 11, then there's really no reason to for them to engage the services of a wedding planner. And the same goes for a stylist or whatever business that you are involved in the wedding space. So, back to specific examples. Another example that I offered our boy G Power was that he could ask questions around how much his clients are using per day or per week or per month on fuel. Because when you ask those sorts of questions, and if he asks those sorts of questions and he's able to attach a specific naira value to it, then they're going to be able to size it up and weigh it up against the cost of owning an inverter on a monthly, weekly, on a yearly basis, and then see how it pans out. And that way, they're going to be able to make a much more informed decision. It's definitely going to make the math a whole lot clearer. It's not going to be a matter of do I like inverters or don't I like inverters. It'll be a matter of using this inverter on a daily, weekly, or monthly basis. Using this inverter or this solar products is going to save me X amount of naira. Is going to save me so amount of maintenance bills for the generator and for fuel and things of that nature. So, of course, like I pointed out, it's a lot easier to do this in some industries than others, and this example is a case in point. So, in solar power sales and inverter sales and alternative energy solutions, it's easy to attach a naira value to what it is that you do. So, for wedding professionals, how would this kind of philosophy relate to how we run our business and how we sell ourselves? Well, the process is going to be the same as what I introduced to you the last time. Victor Antonio of I still can't remember the name of his business. Anyway, the fellow's name is Victor Antonio, sales trainer. You can catch him on his podcast, of which I can't remember the title right now, or his many YouTube videos. If you just dial in Victor Antonio, you find lots of useful resources. He has a very good response for how to deal with commonplace challenges, like when the prospective client says, let me think about it, let me speak with my wife, those kinds of objections or comebacks. So he has some really helpful hints on those sorts of things. So if you check him out, you'll find that his material is quite helpful. So for Victor Antonio, he says the value that we provide could be broken down into three. We'll provide financial value, physical value, or psychological value. Now, obviously, for those of us who are wedding photographers, I would assume that it's obvious that the chief value that we provide is psychological. And then for those of you listening to the podcast who are wedding planners, you guys sometimes provide financial value and sometimes you provide physical value. And so the implication and need payoff questions could key in for wedding planners, for instance, on those top two, on the financial value and the physical value. So, like I pointed out in the last example, that's for those wedding planners who like to, what they're pushing is saving costs. Then you ask them about specific items on the budget, and that way you're able to attach a naira amount to it, and you're going to be able to show in concrete terms exactly how much it is that you are going to be saving them. And I also pointed out in the last episode that I've seen some wedding planners go the physical route. So you point out that in this case, since attaching a hard naira value might be hard, since we're looking at the physical value you provide, they point out that, look, wedding planning looks very easy, but in actual fact, it's going to take you X number of hours, especially in that final week leading up to the wedding when it's crunch time. You're going to spend X amount of hours picking people up from the airport, arranging for drinks, meeting with vendors, doing this, doing that. It's going to be hard to be able to achieve all this and still get a good night's rest so you can wake up and slay and look your absolute best on the wedding day. Now, unfortunately, I can't proffer more specific examples than that. But the good thing about sales is that anyone with half a brain and willing to exercise a certain level of creativity can find how you can how you can apply these principles to how you run your business. So basically, take these ideas and also ideas that you come across when you listen to other people that I've recommended, like this Victor Antonio fellow. Take whatever it is that they say, make a few notes, ruminate on some things, and always ask yourself, how does this apply? Because you'll find that a lot of sales theory out there comes from the business to business space. So you have people who are selling insurance, financial services, stuff like that. But basically, all these things apply. For instance, this framework that we've been using so far, that's the problem, that's the implication questions and need payoff questions, are actually part of a framework called spin selling, which was developed by a guy called Neil Rackham, I think back in the 80s, and it was based on research from salespeople in America in the commercial space. But you can see that they also apply if we sell inverters and solar batteries, and also if we're wedding professionals. So we shouldn't start off this journey by always saying this doesn't apply. This guy is talking about cars. This guy is talking about insurance. I'm a wedding and event professional, so it doesn't apply. The question should always be, okay, this guy happens to be talking about cars or inverters or selling insurance. How does that apply to someone like me who is selling makeup or selling cakes or selling wedding photography? So I think that's just it pretty much. The other questions that I was going to examine in other episodes, I don't think I'll be doing you guys a service if I decide to split them up. So we could just run through a couple of a few more, just so they can get a sense of how people can stretch this out. So, of course, the specific examples that I'm giving here apply to Godwin in his business and how he can sell solar panels and inverters much more effectively. So, some of the questions I suggested were because he's based out of Lagos, and of course, we know that some parts of Lagos are not as secure as others. And so some of the questions could be based around, the level of comfort of, let's say, Madame, for instance, having to wake up early in the morning, let's say 4 a.m., to put on the generator because she has to get the kids ready for school. And yes, 4 a.m. might sound drastic for those of us who live in Abuja, but I used to live in Lagos before, and it actually is realistic to assume that there are some couples in Lagos who actually do have to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, maybe even earlier, so you can start getting the kids ready because you all have to be work on time, and of course you have to drop the kids off at school on time. So it's not unusual in Lagos for that to happen. So the questions could be around that pain point, because having to leave your house at 4 a.m. in the morning to go put on the generator, there's security risk involved. If you live in a not too safe part of Lagos, let's say you're not in one of those, what are they called? Those fancy estates that are cropping up here and there in Lagos and Abuja. So those are some of the implication questions that I suggested you could explore. Then let's see what else. I think that's it pretty much on the examples that I gave for implication and need payoff questions. So, well, that's the idea basically. So, of course, my recommendation, apart from checking out Victor Antonio's stuff and learning more about his value trinity, that's the value that you provide is either physical, financial, or psychological. Also, do Google searches out and see what else, what more material you can find on some of these ideas that we discuss. Because I take a very brief and perfunctory review of all these ideas. I don't go into them in great detail, so it'll be helpful if you guys go and look for the source and see how you can apply them to your businesses. So that's it for today, and yeah, as usual, thank you very much, guys, for listening to the Sales for the Nigerian Wedding Industry podcast. I'm your host, Abuja-based event and wedding photographer Tavishima Ayide. I'll catch you guys at the next episode, and I promise to do my best to provide you guys quality, top-notch tips, tricks, and philosophies about how we can get better at personal selling and to grow our bottom line. Again, we're coming up on the first anniversary of the podcast. We've been on this journey since late February last year, just before the lockdown, and currently recording early January. So in another month or so, we should be coming up on the first anniversary of the podcast. So thank you very much, guys, for listening so far. Your support has been tremendous, and it's because of you guys that we're now at number 18 in the marketing category for podcasts in Nigeria. And I believe it was 222, I think, based on the email that I received for business podcasts in Nigeria. And yes, you heard that correctly. There are over 222 business podcasts in Nigeria. So if you assume that all the good stuff was just American and Canadian and podcasts from the UK, then you know that you have good resources out there for Nigeria. So thank you very much for the support and for helping me climb up in the rankings, for downloading, subscribing, and recommending to other people. So thank you very much, guys, for listening. I'll catch you at the next episode.